Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you so much for coming along today. We're going to touch on something that is going to piss a lot of people off. We're going to really anger some people. Oh my god, it's going to be a lot of fun. Hey, I told you you wouldn't like me. You're not going to like me today. Give me just a minute here. Let me get through this whole opening sequence and then we'll get right into it. How's that sound? Hang on.
You heard a while, but that's just what people do. The theory is you always find somebody new. I guess there was a time I believe that was true, but now.
So yeah, let's talk about abortion, okay? I hear so many nonsense arguments, and these people will talk you in circles, trying to convince you that abortion is acceptable or it's a good thing. And every time you bring up something, they try and kind of twist around to something else, and they keep throwing emotional arguments at us that just don't hold water. They just don't hold water. They sound good for a minute, but there's no argument. There's no reasonable argument for unregulated abortions. Now, what does that mean? Well, I'll get to that. I'll get to that in a minute. So let's go ahead and just handle some of this, the ridiculousness. Okay, so the first thing that everybody wants to bring up when they're talking about abortion is, well, it's not really a person. It's just a bundle of cells. Okay, so it's just a small group of cells. It's not a person, right? It is it is human. So to say that one human is less of a person than another human would be to say that, well, slaves aren't really people. I don't call slaves people, so it's okay. Or Jews were just people. You know, the Nazis said that all the time. Or, you know, they said that they weren't people. Jews are not people. Jews are just, you know, subhuman. They had human DNA, just like slaves had human DNA, just like zygotes have human DNA. It is impossible for you to argue that the wad of cells in a woman's womb is any less of a human than the wad of cells that is sitting here talking to you right now at 49 years old. The zygote is no less human than I am. Now, it may not be fully developed, right? So if you're going to go with this, okay, so that particular wad of cells has not reached whatever my stage of development that I define as human is, well, then who are you to define at what stage of development? Look, first of all, let me say this. Humans don't develop in stages. They develop throughout time. There's not like, you know, okay, it's day 265. He is now, or this person is now no longer this. It is now this. That's not how that works. We may call them different stages. We may list out different stages, but growth doesn't happen in, you know, by our clock and our definitions. Growth is continuous, right? Everything, you know, a tree. Well, what are the stages of a tree? Well, it's a sapling, it's a seed, it doesn't matter. It's a tree from the time that you plant that seed and it starts to grow to the time that well, long after it's dead, it will always be a tree. I mean, is a dead human any less a human than a living human? Is a human who is buried underground no longer a person because they're no longer alive? See, it's a ridiculous argument. That argument holds no water. So we've nailed that one. It's impossible to say that the zygote, the embryo, whatever it is not human. It is. So the next argument is, well, it's not alive. You know, that you're not alive until you breathe air. Again, I am standing about 15 feet away from a tree that must not be alive because I cannot find a heartbeat. It's weird because this tree is still bright green and dropping leaves all the time and creating seeds, you know, and dropping acorns, but it must not be alive because it doesn't have a heartbeat, nor does this grass. The grass doesn't have a heart. You know, I can't think of The last tomato I ate had no heartbeat either. Must not have been alive. God, I shouldn't be eating dead rocks. Come on, that is stupid. Life isn't defined by a heartbeat. That's a ridiculous notion, and that is somebody begging to just, I don't know, ignore reality in order to justify evil. Really, it's just so that they can justify evil. There is no intelligent argument that life starts, once the heart beats or once the breath is drawn or whatever. Those are stupid arguments. They're stupid arguments, and you should be embarrassed of yourself for making them. You really should go hide your head in shame. So what is life? How do you define life? Well, I think what definitely and inarguably separates living from dead is growth, right? Cellular division. The moment cells begin to divide, that does not happen with rocks. Rocks are not alive. Steel is not alive. Steel cells do not divide. Grass cells divide. You know what I'm saying? Growth. Anything that grows is alive. And at the moment of conception, growth begins. So there's no reasonable argument that the moment of conception is not the very definition of when life begins, right? So we've established this. We've established that it is human, and we've established that it is alive, right? So, well, my body, my choice. It's my body. I can do what I want. All right, if I cut your arm off and I bury it in the ground and a couple of years later somebody digs it up and they do a DNA test, will it match your DNA? Yeah, it will. You know why? Because it's your body, right? Same thing with your foot or your breast or your heart or a tumor. If they dig a tumor out of the ground, one that they've pulled from your chest and they've buried it in the ground so nobody would ever get infected by it again, and somebody digs it up and they do a DNA test, whose DNA is it going to have? Yours, right? But if you take a zygote or an embryo or a gestational baby, if you take that out of a body and you bury it and then they dig it up, whose DNA is it going to have? Not yours. It may be identifiable because there are similar DNA strands, but this is not a part of your body. It's not your body, your choice. This is, according to DNA, which evidently is enough to get somebody put in or taken out of jail. So according to DNA, you are talking about an individual, right? This is an individual that we have established is both alive and human. So we are talking about an individual human life from the moment of conception. From the moment those cells start to divide, we have inside the woman an individual human life. So there's no argument that it's your body, your choice. It's not your child. Yeah, okay, so it's inside of you. Well, my kids are inside of my house. My house is my property, my choice. Does that mean I get to kill my kids? Are you okay with me killing a 10, 12, 13-year-old kid of mine or someone else's because they're on my property? Do I get to just randomly kill anybody on my property without having to go to court, without having to justify it? Of course not. It's absurd. You've got to be smarter than that. So you are not, when you say you're aborting somebody, what are you doing? You're not like preventing life from happening, because we've already established that the moment of conception it is alive, right? The child is alive. This wad of cells is both alive and human. So by aborting it, all you're doing is killing a individual human life. That is all you are doing. Now, that's homicide. The only way possible to define an abortion, the only realistic definition, and argue with me, good luck with that, because you can't. There is no cogent argument. Any argument you're going to make is going to be strictly emotional. So the only argument there is that you, by aborting a child, are committing homicide against an individual human life. So what do we do about that? What do we do about rape? What happens, would you want your kid? Look, if you're going to come at me with this ridiculous notion that, well, everybody should look away from all abortions because in certain cases it could be this or that or the other. If that's really your argument, then I want you to do this. I want you to look away at all murder, all homicide, whether it's self-defense or otherwise. I want you to look away from all of it, because in a lot of cases, it's justifiable. Because when somebody breaks into my house and has a knife, it's justifiable for me to kill them. Then nobody should ever question me if I kill anybody anywhere for any reason. Because, maybe it was because of that, and because you have no right to find out, because it's my house, my choice, my city, my choice, my country, my choice, my world, my choice. All the same bullshit responses. If that's the case, then no. You shouldn't be able to ask me why I've murdered somebody. You see how absurd that sounds? It's absurd, right? It's laughable. Well, it's laughable to me when you say, well, it could be this or that. Okay, here's what we do. How about this? When you look at all kinds of, homicides, any sort of homicide, which again is what we've established this as to be. This is a homicide. So if you look at homicide under any other circumstance, a car accident, an invader in your home, somebody who you kill who is trying to mug or rape you, or just straight up you didn't like the dude so you killed him. In any of those situations, the homicide is brought before a jury of peers, and you have to justify that action. Right? So why should abortion be different? Why should abortion be the one time when a homicide is presumed to be forgiven and never adjudicated? Why? That makes no sense. It makes no sense whatsoever. Look, how about this? How about we get rid of all these restrictions that would stop people from being able to get an abortion? And while we're at it, we get rid of all the restrictions that would stop people from getting a gun. Because people who are getting a gun might be using it because of self-defense, just like people who are getting an abortion might be using it because of self-defense. Maybe it's because the kid is a danger to the mother. Or, okay, well, I got raped, and I don't think I should have to look at this child every day because I got raped. Whatever your reason is, I don't care. It's okay for you to get an abortion. But when you do, you should, as I would have to do, if I decide to use my gun, I have to go to court and explain myself. Well, when you commit a homicide for any reason, you should have to go to court and explain yourself. And if it was not justifiable, then guess what? You've committed the crime. So I don't have a problem with people going out and getting abortions. I have a problem with people expecting to get away with it without being questioned. I don't have a problem with people killing intruders in their home. I have a problem with people just killing people without being questioned. Do you understand what we're saying here? Does this make sense to you? Because if it doesn't, you are a moron. Really. You are so emotionally tied to this ridiculous notion that you should have some sort of right to take an individual human life without even being questioned or confronted or judged for it. That's nonsense. We live in a society where our duty is to protect human life, innocent human life, in every possible scenario. Not just when it's not convenient for the mom to talk about it. Look, real quick, let me say something about this whole, well, I was raped and I don't want to have to be reminded. You know what? I was mugged and I have a massive scar on my head. I don't want to be reminded of that every day. So I'm going to go out and kill somebody else's child. I'm going to kill the child of the mugger because I don't want to be reminded of the event that happened to me 30 years ago and I still have a scar from it. These kind of tragedies leave scars. That child, at worst, is a scar. But that child is an innocent victim. To think that it's okay to take the life of a child because of what his father did is to suggest that it's okay for me to kill the children of the guy who mugged me because I don't want to face, I don't want to have to deal with the emotion. Get over it. Get over yourself. If you cannot deal with the emotional struggles of becoming victims, then number one, live a life where you are not subject to become a victim. Since the day I got mugged, I've carried a gun. You know why? Because I don't want to have to kill somebody else's kid to make up for the fact that I got mugged. So I carry a gun. Now I'm not going to get mugged. If you live a life where that's stupid. That's saying that, you can't guarantee somebody you don't know or somebody you do know or something like whatever. You've got all these stupid excuses you're going to make up. Here's my answer to those. It's possible that you may become a victim. It's possible that you may become a victim of a car accident. It's possible a lot of things are possible. And once those things have occurred, it's possible that you're going to be left with scars. reminders of what has happened. Whose fault is that? It's not the child's. The child was not the criminal here, you know? So grow up. Grow up. Learn to live with scars. Learn to embrace your scars and learn to expand yourself, to look at these leftover reminders and to use them for good. Learn to look at the child of these rapes and say, this is why we need to do things to help people, to prevent people from raping people. Not, oh, well, I can't have this kid, I'm going to kill it too. The hell is wrong with you people? Good God, you have no morals. Anyway, guys, I know I've pissed off a lot of people right now, and I don't care. I really don't care. These are the facts. If you want to get into the constitutionality of it, we'll do that in another video because I got news for you. Abortion laws are constitutional. Not only are they constitutional, but abortion is prohibited by the Constitution. Yes, I said it, and I will take any of you to court and prove it. I can prove it unequivocally, and we're going to do that in a coming video, and you're going to hate me for that. All right, guys, thanks a lot for listening. I love you. You guys take care. See ya.
You heard a while, but that's just what people do. The theory is you always find somebody new. I guess there was a